How's it going, everyone? My name is Jalen, and today we'll be getting into my second version of the 2026 NBA mock draft. Today we will be having only 16 freshmen selected. Only going to be tying the record today, but all my stats for the college prospects will be coming from March 6th, and all my draft standings or the draft positioning will be coming from March 7th. Like last time, all the measurables would be based off of ESPN recordings, as well as NBA draft recordings if certain players decided to test waters in the past couple of years. We'll have 6 new prospects, and this time we'll also have a draft recap at the end, just highlighting every single pick and what team they went to. Just an easier way for you guys to see. But without wasting more time, we'll get right on into this. And starting this thing off, we'll have the Sacramento Kings back on the clock again. Not much change for this team, really. Still really need everything. Not the greatest team right now. But this time I have them here selecting Cameron Boozer, freshman out of Duke. And last time around I had him at 3, but the past couple of weeks, I think it's been about 2.5 weeks since my last video. Man, he's really showed that he even though he's not the most athletic, I think he still is very capable of being the number 1 pick in this year's draft. I don't think he's per se a generational talent. I think that kind of gets thrown out a little bit too easily nowadays, especially once you see somebody only play for maybe 15 games. But I think he's a really good rebounder. I think he's a very good 3-level scorer. I think his playmaking definitely has been on display these past couple weeks, and I think that as the teams have started to double team him more in the post and on the instant catch, I think he's just gotten more in-game live reps, and the skip passes out of the post, the opposite corners, the passes we've seen to cutting players like Dame Sarr. I mean, he's really displayed an elite offensive display of talent this year as a freshman, and certain analytics even have him ranked as the best college basketball player we've seen in the past 16 years, which is absolutely ridiculous. It feels like this time of year we were saying the same thing about Cooper Flagg, but here in comes Cameron Boozer. I don't think he's maybe 75% of the athlete that Cooper Flagg was last year, but here he is putting up even crazier numbers. It feels like an even better Duke team, and I think a lot of what he does gets overshadowed because of some of the talent that he plays around. But I mean, this is a guy that shooting almost 60% from the field at this point in time. He's also stepped up to the 3-point line. He's shooting about 3 threes a game still, shooting 40% comfortably. I mean, there's not much you can do with him. In the paint, you can't stop him. You're gonna have to double team him. He's now figured out once you double team him, he can pass and kick out to an open shooter, and he already has the craftiness to the post footwork, the left hand, right hand finishes. I mean, there's not really much you can do with Cameron Boozer at this point in time on the offensive end, and I think even though he doesn't display the flashy dunks and the crazy blocks on the defensive end, I think he still is a really good prospect, and I think there's no reason that he can't potentially be a number 1 pick for a team like Sacramento that maybe they just decide to trade Domantas Sabonis, and I think he probably has your most trade value at this point, and I think this is an easy plug and play. I think that he has a lot of the talents that Domantas Sabonis displays. I think he has pretty much the same passing vision, and he's only 19 years old at this point in time. I think the rebounding level is really not too much of a difference. But again, everything that has been stated at this point, I think he still hasn't become that next level defender. I think he's never going to be an elite shot blocker. I mean, he might be coming in closer to 6'10 than 6'9 that he has listed right now, but he doesn't work as hard on defense as he does on defense. I think at times, a lot of times he can get lost and just kind of be a cone out of times if he's not in the right matchups. I don't think he's a guy that you can put on a lot of different people, especially comfortably out in the perimeter, or expecting to bang down low with maybe the Embiids of the world, the bigger bodies, the Jokic's of the world, the Senguns. I don't think he's really ever going to be a plus defender, maybe an average defender at best, but I think the the offensive engine that he can be, it's just gonna outweigh the defensive liability at time. But I think he definitely can still read passes really well. I think he's still almost averaging almost 2 steals a game. So I mean, I think he's still an effective defensive player here and there. I think he's just not going to be the center that some people think that maybe he could potentially play at the next level. I don't think he's ever going to be playing any other position besides, sadly, a power forward, maybe a small ball 5 at times. But again, the display of offense that he can just show, the passing, the playmaking, being able to come around screens, playmake out of being a ball handler or the screener. I think there's not very many people, let alone in the NBA, that have his skill set, let alone in the world that have his skill set. And I think there's not really a reason that he can't be the number 1 pick here, even though he's just not, again, the flashiest athlete. He might not be the craziest defender either, but I think this is a guy you can build your team around. And I don't think there's really any holes in his offensive game. Maybe defense comes around and he can be an average defender, like I said, but at this point in time, I think Cameron Boozer hasn't really displayed too many holes in his games like the other couple prospects have after here. And I think this is a great pick here for Sacramento, that you get ultimately your franchise guy here at 1, hopefully. But I have him here at Sacramento taking another Duke freshman, Cameron Boozer. And next year we'll have the Indiana Pacers back on the clock, and this is a team that I think blatantly tanking the past couple of days. I mean, they trade for Zubac, and now he's magically hurt. I think a lot of their players have just been hurt. They've had the overall injury bug this year, but I have them here selecting Darren Peterson, freshman out of Kansas, and the only reason I really have him slipping here, I don't think he's really played the greatest in the past 2 weeks. He's only shooting about 36% from the floor and about 33% from the 3 in these past 5 games. But take that what you will. I think I touched on it a little bit last couple weeks. College basketball season's so short, and 5-game stretch. The next level is maybe 8 days, sometimes 9 days, and you just go through shooting slumps. I mean, it's just going to happen. But I think the best thing you can take from that 5-game sample is that he was healthy. There's been multiple high-level athletes like James Harden, Tyrese Halliburton in the past couple of years, where they've dealt with these hamstring injuries, and their plays just overall just dipped off the face of the world. They just really have not been the same players at times, where their athleticism, where it's Halliburton's quick first step, or James Harden getting back to a step back, where they just can't get to their moves, and it overall affects them. Now, to say that if this is the level we're seeing from Darren Peterson, and he really does have a lingering hamstring injury, 100% Darren Peterson might be the best player in this class, like by far. It might be Darren Peterson, then Darren Peterson, then Cameron Boozer or AJ DeBonsa, but I think everybody needs a little bit of criticism. He hasn't really shot the ball that well. I still don't think he's the greatest playmaker, even though in the past couple games he has been statistically getting more assists. I don't think at this level everybody's going to make their open shots, so some assist numbers might not be reflecting how well a playmaker they are at times. But again, I think this is a number 1 overall pick in many years. I don't think that him falling to 2 really is that much of a scare. I think he's human. A little bit of shakeups that never hurt anybody. I do think probably once we get into this conference play or the conference tournament and the regular season wraps up and we start getting even March here, the March Madness tournament, I think Darren Peterson's stock will continue to go back up. Once he has another maybe 30-point game, everybody's going to, oh, wow, completely forget about everything else, and he's going to be the best thing in the world again. So I think there's not really too much to hate on him here. I think he's really still the best guard prospect in this class by far. He's a really poised 3-level scorer. He kind of makes it look really easy at times, where he has an IQ where it's almost, or he's 25 already. I think he's going to have a very early prime and probably a long prime at this next level once he makes it to the NBA. And again, I don't think there's any knock on him here going number 2 over number 1. I mean, players like Kevin Durant weren't number 1 in their class. There's no knock on Kevin Durant whatsoever. I think anybody looking back at it would have took him number 1 over Greg Oden, but to each their own. And I think here you're pairing up a healthy Halliburton, hopefully coming back off his Achilles tear, and like I said, you trade for Zubac at the trade deadline, and also pair with Pascal Siakams, who look really good, and you've seen some development here from Jarris Walker. I think it was a 7th pick a few years ago. You clear house, or not clear house, but you kind of give up on the Ben Mathurin experiment. I think this is another high-level scoring guard that you can kind of plug into that offense, where this can be a running mate here for Tyrese Halliburton here in the future. And I think this is going to be a really great 1-2 combo. Maybe this is your future franchise player. Maybe you're one or two. I think this is going to probably be your leading scorer from probably his second year on to maybe year 15 if he ends up staying here with the Pacers for that long. But I think this is a home run pick here at 2. I don't think you really can mess up one of these top 3 picks, especially if you just take one of these 3 guys. But again, I think there's really no knock on Darren Peterson's play these past few weeks. He just hasn't been Darren Peterson yet. But that's ultimately why I have him slipping here to number 2 to the Indiana Pacers in this mock. The next year we'll have the Brooklyn Nets on the clock here at 3. It's a very interesting team. Still not really a whole lot going on. I think this is going to be a good pick here for this team. I think this gives this guy a little bit more freedom to kind of have a team built around him in the future. But I have the Brooklyn Nets here selecting AJ Dubonsa, a freshman out of BYU. And again, I don't really think this is too much of a knock on his play in the past couple weeks. I think he's had to kind of a little bit overcompensate for some injuries that happened. They lost probably their 3rd best player. I don't think he's really better than Rob Wright, but Richie Saunders goes down with a torn ACL about 2 weeks ago. Really affects the swing of offense. He's a really good spot-up shooter, and he can create a little bit for himself and others. When you lose anybody with that skill set, you kind of have to lay a little bit more on the shoulders of the stars or the main role or the playmakers on your team at that point. And I think we did see some more flashes from AJ. I think he rebounded the ball a little bit better in this 2-week stretch. I think the playmaking also definitely went up. Pretty sure he flirted with a triple-double within that span, and maybe that was the day of I posted. But I don't think there's too much of a knock on him here. I think Cam Boozer just definitely elevated his play that much. I do really think that this is a guy you can build your team around here at 3. You did go out and you drafted a lot of, players that have a very versatile skill set where they can all dribble a little bit, they can all pass it a little bit, they can all shoot it a little bit. And I think you set up those those picks kind of translate to role players in their future when you get a chance to hit on a star like here. And I think you just take the development year from players like Jaeger Dolman or Nolan Traore. I wouldn't really say great year for Ben Surratt, but you kind of build around that, and you kind of get your star player here in AJ Dubonsa, where you're going to pair with, I guess, Michael Porter Jr. I guess Cam Thomas is gone now here, but I think this is still a guy that instantly is going to come in and be your A1 player. I think everything's going to run through AJ probably. I don't know if he is going to be ready to take that much usage. I don't know if he's going to be ultimately ready to create at an NBA level day one. I think it probably would be really good learning for him to have a bunch of extra expectations. I think this is definitely a kid that can handle it. I think he looks for the moment. Again, I think this is another really pro-ready player, and I think in other years he probably would be more of a contention for the number 1. I don't think it's out of the picture for him to go number 1 this time around. I just have him at 3. Like I touched the last time, I don't think there's a knock on any of his talent here at 3. You just can't all go number 1. And Unfortunately, I do have him here at this time around in this draft. But again, this is a guy that has a really, really lengthy just build. He can get to his spot with 1 or 2 dribbles. I think we definitely saw a stretch where what we can see with AJ when he does have that 3-ball going. Unfortunately, the past couple, I think 6 games he's played, his numbers have fallen off another 3%. I think he was shooting about 38% in the last video. He's now shooting almost a little under 35. I think this is probably right about where he's going to be shooting. I don't really think he is the greatest shooter, but I definitely think he can get hot. And in the future, maybe he does become a closer to 37, 38%. But I don't think that's going to be ultimately his game. I think he's going to live a lot on the inside. I think he's going to get to the rim with kind of making it look effortless. He's taking a really good amount of free throws still. I really like the way that he's able to draw fouls. He knows the game really in and out at this level with pump fakes, step throughs. Really, really crafty guy here. Starting to get a little bit more better, comfortable with working on the pick and roll. I don't really think that BYU has the greatest centers to kind of just display what it's going to be kind of equated at the next level, but I don't think Nick Claxton really is either. But I think once you kind of get the right pieces around AJ Debonsa, you're going to kind of see him elevate those pieces, and it's just going to look a lot better. And whether that's the players that are on their team right now, I think probably not a lot of those Brooklyn Nets players are going to be there by the time AJ Debonsa is in his 3rd year, 4th year. But for those that are, I think they're definitely going to be able to develop and tool their game around being able to play with AJ. I think this is going to be a guy that's probably your franchise player from the second that his name is set at the podium. But unfortunately, he's just going to be the guy that has to get stuck with the Brooklyn Nets here at 3. And I really hope it doesn't affect his career too much, because I really think he does have a really high floor, but I don't think he's really ready to take on too much of the carrying the load of having to create for everybody else while also trying to set up himself. I think he's a lot more poised to kind of getting himself going, hopefully having a little bit better of a playmaker to get him some of those easy looks. But here I don't think you can pass up a no-brainer. Maybe could be a number 1 talent here at 3. So I think the Nets are here getting an easy steal, and it's a no-brainer. I think they'd probably take this pick within 30 seconds of being on the clock, and I have them here taking AJ Debonsa with that selection. Next, we'll have the Washington Wizards here at 4. Everybody's heard that they've recently acquired Anthony Davis as well as Trae Young. He actually recently got ejected before making his debut, getting kicked out against the Rockets, which, funny enough, wasn't even dressed to play that game. But I think he made his debut on Thursday, and then pairing those 2 stars, I have them here selecting freshman star Caleb Wilson out of UNC. And recently, yes, even let me back up a little bit more. He broke his left hand against Miami, I guess, after the Duke game. Following up to now kind of today's timeline where reports were coming out that he broke his right thumb now. So he's going to undergo season-ending surgery, which is kind of really upsetting because he was kind of rushing back to ultimately try to play in that Duke game again, try to upset him again at Duke in Cameron Indoor Stadium. But unfortunately, he does break his thumb here. I think it came in practice, an accidental hit on the rim, which I guess that kind of just shows off his athleticism here accidentally. But this is a kid that ultimately he wants to play. I think he has that drive. I think that's definitely something you want in a guy that you're picking here this early. But I think now the question would be how much development he's really going to miss here with 2 broken hands, essentially. I think he's healed from his left hand. I think that only took 2.5 weeks, so maybe thumb will take maybe but 4 weeks. I think he should be good for combine time. I don't think he will be coming back. Maybe if UNC somehow makes it to the national championship without him being healthy. But I think we've seen the last of him in college, which unfortunately is a really sad story because he has been just a very fun, interesting talent to watch, and just never want to see any of these young kids get hurt. But Taking that away, in the 24 games that we did get to see Caleb Wilson, I think he is a very, very, very fun athlete to watch. I think he probably is the most athletic player in college basketball. He kind of reminds me of the Minton Thompson, Star Thompson's athletic, wiry second jump. I mean, he just kind of makes everybody else look almost in another class in themselves, where he's just always probably going to be the most athletic player on the team, or on the floor, let alone the team. But I kind of question the fit here with Trae Young and Anthony Davis and Alex Sarr. I think they do have a good nucleus here of young talent. I do worry about Caleb Wilson's jump shot overall. I don't think that he is the greatest scorer at the next level. I think in the college level, he definitely is going to be able to get to the basket. He's just way more athletic and stronger than the average college athlete. But when you start pairing him up against the next level NBA talent, I don't think he has the tools to create his own jump shot, unfortunately. I don't think he's going to be able to live in the mid-range. It's just not really an offensive strategy we've seen probably in about 15 years at this point. That being said, I think he might get relegated to more of a role-playing role, but I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing for him. I think he's still going to be a really good cutter. I think he's still going to be a really good offensive rebounder, and like I said, he is a good mid-range shooter. I don't know how well or how much an offense is really going to scheme that up for him. I think he is eventually going to have to stretch that out to the three-point land. He's only attempting about 1.3, I think 1.4 threes a game, if I remember off the top of my head, but the numbers haven't been great. I think he only shot 63s in his time here. He definitely needs to get that up at the next level, but now getting it out of the way, I guess, knocking on him as an athlete, I think that defensively, I think he might be the best defensive prospect in this class, maybe top 5 at worst, but I think he's going to be your point of attack defender. I think he's going to spend a lot of time on the other team's best offensive talent. And I think he's just going to be overall really disruptive. I think he's a really wiry, long frame. He's going to come in at 6'10", maybe 6'11", maybe on a good day. And he's just going to be a problem. He's going to be probably like a Jaden McDaniels, where he's just going to be annoying, lengthy, disruptive, loud in your face. Just every team needs that player, and I think this is a guy that should pair up with Trae Young, where he's not really the greatest defensive problem on the other end, but I think you have Anthony Davis. I think that's a great pairing with him and Sarr. I think maybe you can become the best defensive team, if not in the East, maybe even in the league, competing with Wemby and the Oklahoma City Thunder there too. So I think this is a really great pick here at 4. Unfortunately, we won't get to see any more Caleb Wilson for a few more months, but I think the 24 games we did get to see, he's clear and dead, I think, the 4th best player in this draft, and that's why I have him here selected to the Washington Wizards at the 4th pick. And then moving on here, we'll have the Utah Jazz on the clock at 5. That's the team that currently has been not tampering, but kind of resting players when they really don't need to be rested. The whole Lauri Markkanen, where he's sitting out. I think Adam Silver is really kind of fed up with the whole tanking phenomenon at this point, and this is a team that I can't see them really coming away from this year without having AJ DeBonsa. But as he's already off the board, I will have the Utah Jazz here selecting Keaton Wagler, a freshman out of Illinois, and man, he's just, I guess, been the fastest rising player in this class. I think he's definitely calmed down a little bit at this point. Kylan Boswell's come back, so his numbers aren't going to be continuously on the skyrocket upwards trend, but he's now moved back to kind of a combo guard, more a little bit off ball, still a little bit on ball, but he's not the main playmaker anymore. For better or worse, I think that definitely got to see a side to his game that I ultimately didn't know if he fully had the capabilities of doing. Probably when he saw it more come the March Madness tournament, probably a little bit of conference tournament. Probably would have been the combine ultimately once we got to see him play 5s if he did ultimately choose to do that. But I think this is still a really, really, really good combo guard here. I think this is my second favorite guard, probably my second favorite guard in this class. Probably the second best guard in this class at this point. He's just been really fun to watch coming out of nowhere. Again, this was a 3-star recruit coming into this year. Not a lot of expectations for him. Probably projected to be a 4-year guy, and if the NBA came calling after that, then maybe it was going to be a great career for him. But this guy that came in and shocked everybody, it's clear-cut, one-and-done prospect. 5, I think, is maybe the higher end. I don't know if this is kind of where he ultimately will be going. I think I can definitely see him from like maybe 6 to 9 range, somewhere in there, maybe 5, come the right situation. But I think this is a really good shooter, really great offensive talent again. I hinted that he did play a little bit of the on-ball creator when their point guard did go down for that stretch. I think he had 46 against Purdue, and I think they were ranked top 4, top 5 around that time. They were still really good, projected to be really good. I really like Keaton Wagler here. Not a whole lot of holes in the offensive game. He can get downhill. He can create his own 3. I mean, his numbers have fallen off a little bit this 2-week period. Earlier on, he was shooting around 46% from 3, I think, 45% from 3. So he's really lighting it up, too. He has the couple of step back range. I think he's really comfortable taking a couple steps back and shooting that NBA 3, maybe a couple steps behind the NBA 3. Really great combo piece here. You compare it with the breakout of Keontae George, and ultimately I think this is a great cornerstone that you compare here with the Utah Jazz here at 5. Next we'll have the Atlanta Hawks here on the clock at number 6. This is by way of the trade last year on draft night by way of the Pelicans. They've been playing, honestly, for their standards, the Pelicans have been playing some better basketball in these past couple of weeks. I think they were at number 2 maybe last time I did this come around. Now all the way at 6, so it's great for them. They're conveying a little bit worse of a pick in what's going to be a really great draft. So, hey, kudos to the New Orleans Pelicans. But I have the Atlanta Hawks here selecting freshman Michael Brown Jr. out of Louisville. And at this point in time, I think he's played his final college basketball game, or regular season game, my bad, sorry. He would not be playing this Saturday against Miami. I think the back issues have come up again. Which unfortunately, I think this is another really fun guy we're missing out on seeing him at his full potential kind of due to injuries, but that's just kind of how it's going to be sometimes. I think this past 2 weeks, too, he was really starting to find his stride. His numbers have definitely increased. Percentage-wise, he's definitely increased the past couple weeks. I think he had back-to-back 29-point outings coming off of that 45-point outing he had. Tried to tell you, he's good. I think the 3-point volume that he displays, I think his overall shot diet that he displays is going to be really great and translate to the next level. I think the efficiencies, again, it's only a 20-game stretch here in college. That could be maybe a month and a half in the NBA. Sometimes you're just not going to shoot the greatest, and that's just kind of how it's going to go. But I think that he definitely has the talent to shoot it multiple steps behind the 3-point line. He's going to be a really good playmaker. I think the turnover numbers are still a little bit high because the Pat Kelsey offense is just you're going to get up and down, jack a lot of threes, and ultimately turn the ball over a little bit too much because of the pace that they're playing at. But I don't think that's any knock on the level of point guard that he's going to be playing here. And I think you kick Dyson Daniels back off the ball a little bit more, maybe be your complementary player. You pair Jalen Johnson, ultimately, I think you're going to be your second best player here, Michael Brown Jr. I still don't think he's the greatest defender. I think he's definitely has some size to put on there, but you need to get out of mediocrity here if you're the Atlanta Hawks. I think there's some crazy stat where they were 90 or 45 and 45 in their last 90 games. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. That's hard to do at any level. So I think this is definitely a difference maker. I think he kind of is pretty similar to Trae Young in play style, but I think this is a guy that can play a little bit more off ball, be a little bit more willing to play off ball. And I think that's kind of what you're going to need here when you have another high usage player in Jalen Johnson and the emergence of Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So I think this is a great pick here. You finally get your point guard. He does have some roots at OTE, so he's kind of going back home a little bit in the sense he is from Florida. So he does have some familiarity with the Atlanta area. So I don't know. Take that for what you want. I think this is a great pick here, though, at number 6, and I think you're getting my number 1 point guard here, outside the top 5. So in my books, that's a great pick here at 6, and I think that's exactly what the Atlanta Hawks should do here with this selection. Then here, next at number 7, we'll have the Dallas Mavericks back on the clock, and they had a guy who used to wear a couple of those numbers. He used to wear 2 of those 7s. Hopefully we'll try to replace that guy a little bit. But here I have the Dallas Mavericks selecting freshman Kingston Flemings out of Houston. And I don't know, I kind of teetered with this pick a little bit, going up or down a little bit. I ultimately decided to keep him here at what's going to be 7 to the Dallas Mavericks. But I think he's definitely he's a little bit cold now here from the 3-point line. And the numbers might not look like he's cold. He's definitely not been shooting at the greatest. I think he's still getting to the free throw line pretty well. I think he's definitely still been displaying his playmaking ability at a great level. But I have to knock on you sometimes when, I mean, you can't all be perfect. I think I'm still worried a little bit about his 3-point shooting ability at the next level. You know, at this point, he's played 30 games and he's shooting 40% almost. So numbers would reflect he's a pretty decent shooter. But I think with the volume where he's only taking about 3 threes a game, that kind of does scare me a little bit. Where is this the high end of his talent, where you got 30 games where he shot the best that he's really going to shoot, and maybe the next 30 he might shoot 29%. I don't know. It kind of worries me a little bit. I know he's had really good games. I know he's had the 42-point outburst against Texas Tech earlier this year. I'm just kind of ultimately not as high as I think other people were on Kingston Flemings. I think he's still a really, really good defender. He's a freshman playing in Kelvin Sampson's offense that's not really heard of, let alone being a starter in Kelvin Sampson's offense. Being the main ball handler, being the main distributor, or one of them, splitting with Milos Uzan. But man, I've heard some comparisons here with Shea, the SGA comparison. I think you're giving him too high of expectations almost, I think. And I did like it a little bit more when Kingston Flemings was kind of the unknown prospect in this draft coming into this year. Where he's kind of climbing up boards. Who is this guy? Maybe he should be going higher on. I think he's now hit a little bit of a wall. I think he's kind of been perfect a lot of this year. And now I'm kind of having a little bit of something to knock on. I'm a little bit scared on the draft selection here. But I think he's still the talent that he's displayed. He's still really good 3-level scorer. He can get to his own shot. I'm still a little worried about that 3-point shot and how well he's going to be able to do, if he's going to be able to get to a higher volume. This is a guy that's still not getting to the free throw line as much as you really want to see, but again, sometimes that's just the college numbers, and that's what the game is going to reflect at a college level when you're playing on a championship level team. So that's just kind of what it's going to be sometimes. But I think Kingston Flemings here is still a really great prospect. I'll be surprised if he's ultimately here number 7 come draft, if the draft was today. But like I said, a little bit of a knock on his shooting the past couple weeks that have him a little bit of a slip. So it is what it is. But I think the Dallas Mavericks definitely are here, still getting a steal at number 7. Next, we'll have the Memphis Grizzlies on the clock here at 8. Again, I will be drafting this team like Ja Morant is not there. I think it's just all but done at this point. This team's tanking. Probably should be. I mean, this is the class where you can go get a guy that's going to ultimately try to replace Ja Morant. So I'll have them here selecting Darius Acuff Jr., freshman guard out of Arkansas. And man, he's been really good these past couple weeks. I mean, he had the 46-point game against Alabama. I think that was within the 2-week stretch. He's had a couple of games now where he's been, I think, scoring 24 plus. Actually, I lied. I think he had one game in there where he's 20 points. But he's been really, 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 really good. He's been hard to stop. Again, he's still really good getting downhill. Now he's starting to just get really hot from the 3-point line, too, where his numbers have just continued to skyrocket. I think he is dealing... I can't exactly remember the type of injury he's dealing with right now. I know he's going to be missing this weekend's game, so his regular season is done. But if we were to look at the 30 games that he's played and he didn't play anymore, I don't understand how. I'm making the video, and I still don't understand how I'm having him at the third point guard here selected off the board. I mean, this is a Calipari guard. He's shooting 40% or 50% and then 44% from the 3-point line, and he's taking 5 of a game. What more do you want, really? I mean, it's been said for years in now. I mean, taking a Calipari guard is like the easiest draft recipe year in and year out, but I still have a little bit of knock on him. I don't think he's really still the greatest defender. I don't think he's really too undersized. I'm not really worried about there. I think he still can be a good defender at the next level, but I think it's just kind of almost a little bit of a testament to how good those other 2 point guards can be. I'm a little bit battling now between him and Kingston Flemington on who's that 2. I really like Michael Brown Jr. I think that 3-point shot, just the way the basketball's trended in the past couple of years. High volume threes, you just need it. You need somebody that can just take a bunch of threes, let alone just make a bunch of threes at a high level. And maybe Darius Acuff is starting to showcase he can be that player. I mean, he showed everybody he's done it. The numbers don't lie. But I think there's still something holding you back from him being at the next level. I don't know what it is. I think maybe just the defense. Maybe just playing in the Calipari offense where he's just kind of getting those guys to the next level. I couldn't tell you exactly why. I mean, I'm making the video, and I couldn't tell you exactly why I have him here at 8 below 2 other point guards, but it's gonna be. Well, all I have to say is I hope he rushes or doesn't rush back. I hope he safely returns back to the court these next couple days. I can't see him missing the conference tournament, let alone March Madness tournament. I really want to see him play. I know he's going to have multiple 20-point outbursts. It's going to be really fun, and I think 8 might be his floor here. I think this might be the lowest that I might have him mocked, basically, is what I'm saying. So, I have him here at 8 to the Memphis Grizzlies. I think this is a great pick. We'll see if he's this low in the future. And continuing to move on here in this draft, we'll have the Chicago Bulls on the clock here at 9. Again, I made the joke, we will not continue to draft guards. We won't make any more guard selections for this team. They definitely need some height, some big depth. And I have them here selecting center Patrick Ngumba out of Duke. And this also ends the run on freshmen in this draft. I think that's the first 8 picks were all freshmen again. Shocker. I think this is, again, really good draft, but Patrick Ngumba is somebody I really started to fall in love with in this draft cycle. I really like his game a lot. I think Duke does have a lot of talent. I touched on Cameron Boozer a little bit earlier in his playmaking ability. I think this is another big that just doesn't get the glory that he really deserves for his playmaking ability at times. And I think that he can be a hub at times, passing at the top of the key. Playmaking a little bit for some cutting wings that this team does have. I mean, you have a million guards, as I said. Some DHOs, some pen screens. I think he definitely can move around. I think he definitely has the fluid ability to move around the floor a little bit more and set a little bit more off-ball screens. Just get him moving around. I don't think this is a guy that you're going to post on the block and just have him run around setting only on-ball screens. I think he definitely has an IQ to get other people open with or without the ball, and maybe even put people in a position to cut to an open spot on the floor and get ultimately some easier buckets. I think this is a much-needed position fill for the Bulls. I mean, they get rid of Vucevic trade deadline. Sticks, Jalen, what's the last name? Smith. I don't know if that's ultimately going to be your center of the future. I have him here, obviously, taking a center. I think this is still a big body that you can instantly plug in and play that center. I think he's an underrated rebound. He might get a little bit too much hate on his rebounding. He's just playing with a black hole rebounding machine, I guess, in Cameron Boozer. I mean, that guy doesn't really do... there's not much that guy can't do on the court, obviously. I have him going 1 in this draft. But Patrick Ngumba, he's still a really high-efficiency player. I mean, if you're looking for a guy that's just only going to dunk the ball, I think he shot 72% last year as a freshman. Pretty much only just dunked the ball and did layups. This year, he's shown the ability to shoot the 3-point shot a little bit at times, only taking 1 a game. numbers there you can see 27%. Not the greatest shooter. Does leave room for him to improve. I think the three-point shot and the passing ability that he brought into from his freshman year to his sophomore year, I think that jump shows you that this guy is capable of. There's a lot of room to grow in his game, I think, overall. And I think this guy definitely has the IQ for a team. If he gets the right coaching, whether or not Billy Donovan is going to be that right coach for him, I think this is a guy that he could be a sponge. I think there's a lot of stuff where he can mold, or a lot of aspects of a game that he can mold and just be the perfect center for whatever offense I think you want to put him into. I don't think that he's going to be limited to just being a screen and roll guy, and I really would hate for that to happen at the next level, but I don't think he's a perfect prospect. I think he still need to work on a little bit more. I think he might be a little bit raw, but I think he's still probably a little more complete than what people are going to give him credit for. And again, I think the passing and the shooting is a big hint to that, but I have him here basically going 9 to the Bulls, and I think it's a much needed position, like I said. So I think this is a great pick here for them. Chicago at 9. And then completing our first 10 picks here, we'll have the Milwaukee Bucks back on the clock, I guess, here. And I think this team's ultimately really going to keep Giannis. I think they teased everybody. This team's probably going to keep Giannis. I can't see them trading him. I just physically can't see him playing in any other jersey besides the Milwaukee Bucks one. So for that reason, I have them here selecting freshman Braden Burries out of Arizona. And this is a guy I personally dealt with a personal fight back and forth where at the beginning of the year I thought he probably wasn't ready to go to the NBA. I thought he was struggling a little bit more efficiency-wise against what was going to be the easier part of his schedule. I know they did have the UF game and some of those tougher teams at the beginning of the year, but I'm talking about the mid-majors. I was a little bit worried more or less for some of those efficiency outputs, but as you get into the conference play, and then Arizona's what's going to be one of the better teams in the nation at this point still, his plays just continue to just be on the rise. And I think I'd rather be a lot better at the end of the year than play my best basketball in November and December. So I really do have him here climbing, I think, what's going to be almost 17 spots between the past 2 weeks. But I think it's just a testament to me just undervaluing him, I think, at times. I think I hinted to it last video, him being more like, I think he can be like a Derek White at the next level, being that perfect complementary 2 guard, maybe even playing a little bit of 1 at times. Ever since I've said that, I can't get it out of my mind. I think he's a really strong body defender for being only 19 years old. I think it was 20 years old come draft time. Either way, still a really strong frame for his age. He's been a really good defender. I think he's flashed the playmaking ability at times. Arizona is loaded. It's a lot of great not great playmaking, but decent playmaking talent on the team. I think he's still been a really good scorer. He's shooting almost 50%, 37% from 3. He's getting to the free throw line, almost shooting at 80%. I mean, there's not too much to hate on him here, and I think this is a team that maybe could be losing Kevin Porter Jr. I don't know if Ryan Rollins is really your point guard of the future, but if you do have Giannis, I think this is a perfect wing pairing. I think you're going to want a bunch of guys that can just sit there and shoot. And when Giannis isn't on the floor, they can create for themselves a little bit and maybe give you 10 to 13 points a night and play above average defense. I think that's all you can want to pair with Giannis. And I think that's exactly what you're getting here at 10. And why not get a young, athletic combo guard? And I think that's exactly what the Bucks need. I think you need more athleticism too overall. I think the team was a little older. As you start to transition to this younger, what could be a rebuild potentially, maybe you're trying to stretch out a few more years Giannis. I think this is a great pick here at 10. And this is a piece that you're probably going to have, or a player you're probably going to have now here for the next, hopefully, 5 to 8 years. And I think this is a great pick here at 10 for the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, here in 11, we'll have the Portland Trail Blazers on the clock. And this is a team I think that's it's been kind of just stuck in this position where you're not really drafting the highest level of talent. You're not really hitting on a lot of these picks, but hopefully in a more loaded class, I have them here hitting on this selection, and I have them here selecting LeBaron Philon Jr., sophomore out of Alabama. And this is a combo guard that's really seen his stock, for me, thrive and just continue to skyrocket as he's continued to come back for what's now been a full sophomore year. I think he definitely could have been a first-round pick, maybe the back end of first round, maybe the 20s high end last year. I think he definitely made the right decision in hindsight, and he's going to see a little bit more money in his pockets coming for this first contract now, if he's going to decide to declare, which I believe he will for this class. I think he's seen as really everything's jumped for this sophomore year. I think he's now been kind of this leader of the offense, which has really just been awesome to see. I think he's really crafty, not really the shiftiest or greatest athlete per se, but he gets it done, and he's really good at getting to the free throw line. He's shooting almost 80%, as you can see. He's really good 3-point shooter too. He's shooting almost 40%, and he's just elevated his game really. I think this is going to replace a lot of the Caleb Love minutes, and I think you're just going to win more games. I think it's going to be a lot more of an efficient scorer. Not any knock on Caleb Love, but I think if you're going to play more of a lottery talent instead of a two-way talent, I think you're just going to have a ultimate more success, I think, on paper. So I think this is a guy that can play, like I said, maybe your 1 or 2 at spots. I think he has a lot of similarities to, funny enough, CJ McCollum. So I think Blazers fans will have some familiarity with that too. But I think on the defensive side, he's not really the greatest defender. He's going to get probably picked out a lot in pick and roll and isolation. So I don't think he's instantly going to come in and steal a lot of your starting minutes. I think Damian Lillard's still going to come in, probably be next to Shaedon Sharpe and Deni Avdija. But off your bench, this is going to be a really interesting combo guard now. I think he's going to come in, maybe average anywhere from like 8.5, 8.7 to maybe even 11 points come his rookie year, and just be a really fun player off your bench. And then I think here, as you start to get towards the back end of the lottery, I think this is a really safe pick, and I think this is a great overall prospect to pair here with what's going to be trying to be a playoff team for the Trailblazers come next year. Next, we'll have the Oklahoma City Thunder on the clock here at 12. Again, I already expressed that I don't enjoy drafting for them. I think they're a really greatly developed and built team. I think they've done a really good job. Ultimately, obviously, they won a championship and been the best team in the league for the past 2 years. So I have them here selecting Axel Lindenberg, a senior out of Michigan, and I think even statistics have ultimately, I guess, backed this up too. I think he's had one of the best college basketball seasons we've seen in the past 15 years. I think he's a really versatile, well-rounded prospect here you're getting at 12, and it's really scary for the Thunder here, but I think he's just ultimately just been one of the best players to watch. I think there's not really many holes to his games besides his 3-point shooting, which we'll touch on in a second, but he's a really good defender, and he's lengthy, 6'10", he really moves well. He's a good switch defender. I think he can guard 1 through 5 at times. I think he definitely probably won't be parked on the center for his entire stretch of minutes, but I think he definitely can switch on there, play against some certain ones, maybe get some stops here and there. Definitely switch on to some smaller guards if you're going to have him at the 4 in some pick and roll actions. And I think he's just going to be a problem defensively. And I think he's also a really good rebounder. This kind of gives you a little bit more size. I know that the Thunder really rely a lot of their size on their bigs. And, I mean, Isaiah Hartenstein's not going to be there forever because you just can't pay everybody. So I think this is a cheaper contract you're going to get here, some more size. I think he's still a guy that's going to attack a lot of closeouts. Could potentially be your ball handler, your pick and roll. Could also be your screener out of a pick and roll option. But like I said, the 3-point shooting, it's a little bit of an issue. For his career, I think he's around 33, maybe 34% now. It's not the greatest, especially if you know he's going to be more of a catch-and-shoot guy, especially at this next level. Right now, he's brought his percentages back up. I think he was at 28%, 29% come around my last video. But I think that's definitely a worrisome issue, where this is a guy that's going to be 24 come his first game. So how much really more can you expect him to develop, I guess, that jump shot? if you haven't seen too much of a leap for the previous, I guess, 4 years or plus. So I think it's definitely not something you can't ever learn to do. I think shooting is definitely the easiest skill to learn of the passing, dribbling, and however. So I think he's definitely already has everything else to his game. But if he develops a just respectable 3-point shot, and it's not even going to have to be off the dribble. I think he's just going to have to be a respectable catch and shoot guy. And if he can add that as well as just the other tools that he has to his game, and just then bring that to the Oklahoma City Thunder here at 12, a fan of any other team is just going to be really annoyed that the fact that this is somehow everybody's allowed them to build this. But I think this is a home run pick. I think this is a steal here at 12, and I think this is going to be a fan favorite for Oklahoma City Thunder fans, and that's exactly why I have him here selected at 12. All right, here and then pick 13, we'll have the Charlotte Hornets on the clock, and this has just kind of been one of the hottest teams in basketball right now. I think Charles Lee has really gotten that team to perform, and I think the addition of Colin Knippel and just other well-developed, older college basketball talents, I think they've really just been a fun team to watch this year, and I have them here pairing that with a selection of Jaden Quayton's a sophomore big out of Kentucky. I mean, here, I'll just get into that now. He could be the age of a freshman. He's only 18 currently. He played his whole freshman year at 17 primarily. Fortunately, did tear his ACL towards the end of that freshman campaign. I think he only played 23 games, but he was putting up numbers of 2.6 blocks and a steal a game. So he was a defensive nightmare, and I think that's what teams ultimately would be drafting him on here. I think he's going to be one of the best rim protecting talents. I think ultimately when he steps into the NBA, I think similarly to Bam Adebayo, I think he's a smaller, undersized center, kind of height-wise, but he's just going to have the athleticism to basically feel like he's covering the whole floor. I think he's definitely going to be able to switch out and guard some guards in maybe a 7-second scenario out of a pick and roll or just smaller switches. And I think he's definitely just going to have the ability to just be a problem on the defensive end. I think, like I said, he played most of his freshman year at 17, so he ultimately wasn't even eligible to be drafted last year. So I think this rehab was just a great year to kind of just for him, just kind of work on other aspects of his game. I think just mentally see more live action games. I think just rehabbing an ACL is you just never want to rush back from. And unfortunately, he did try to come back. Didn't feel like it was the greatest decision. It wasn't feeling right, so they did shut him down. But I think when healthy, I think hopefully we'll get to see that around the Combine time. I think he's just going to be a problem defensively. I think he's going to be a really good screener and a really great lob threat. I think he's going to be probably a 95 percentile athlete in that Combine. And I think coming in with his just young age and his ability to hopefully be able to maybe develop a jump shot, and he's just not the greatest shooter right now. He's posted only 45% free throw percentage last year, so there's a lot of room for him to grow as a jump shooter, but he's super young. So I think maybe you get another great rim protector. Maybe this is going to ultimately replace Moussa Diabate. You maybe don't have the most invested in Ryan Cockburner being the second-round pick last year. I think this is going to be a great piece to add with LaMelo Ball, a great rim-protecting role play or rim-running freakish athlete, and I think Jaden Quayton definitely is going to be a problem. And I know that the Hornets announcers are going to be going crazy just with some of the blocks and the steals and the crazy dunks and the lobs that he's going to be throwing and performing week in and week out. And I think this is a great home run talent. I think this is a great prospect to pair here with LaMelo Ball and Colin Knippel and Brandon Miller. And I think this might turn you into one of the best defensive teams in the East. And I think this is a home run 10 out of 10 pick, and that's exactly why I have him here selected at 13 to the Charlotte Hornets. Then wrapping up the lottery here at 14, we'll have the San Antonio Spurs on the clock, and this is coming by way of the Atlanta Hawks. But I think everybody's been a little surprised at the emergence of Wemby, kind of how fast he's just kind of taken over what feels like the Western Conference, which has just been a difficult conference. And I think I have them here pairing what could be ultimately the face of the league one day, and I have them here selecting Heinz Steinbach, a freshman out of Washington, by way of Germany, actually. It's a little bit older prospect. I think he'll be 20 by the time he's drafted, but I think that's pretty common nowadays. But I think he's just one of the greatest just rebounders in this class. I think when you're just looking at him, I think you might say he might be a little bit slower, maybe might play even on the block, just back down big, but at that measurables of 6'11", 220, might be even a little bit heavier than that, and you see the 18 points and 12 rebounds a game. I think he has a lot of fluidity to his game. I think he definitely can step out in the perimeter, kind of think almost to a tail end of Kelly Olynyk's career, where he became this almost a little bit of a playmaker at times, posting, I think, 3 to 4 assists. I think he definitely can step out on the perimeter, definitely be comfortable putting the ball on the ground, attacking closeouts, and he's also going to be a really good rebounder on the other end. I think he's not going to be the greatest defender at the next level. I think he definitely has the IQ and maybe even defensive instincts to be in the right spot. I don't know if he's going to be ultimately blocking a lot of shots. I think he definitely could change a lot of shots, which you just got to pay attention for that to see how much of an impact he really can be at the next level. But I think he definitely has good hands. He's going to be in the right area to deflect some shots, maybe even deflect some passes. But this is just going to be a really good prospect to pair here with Wemby. I think he's going to be really good off the bench. I think he can maybe even start with Wemby come in the future towards the tail end of his rookie contract. Like I said, he definitely will have some comfortability playing the 4, I believe, at the next level. I think there's a lot of room to be a better shooter. He's only taking about 1.6 threes a game, I believe. So maybe about 2 threes a game. I think he definitely has a room to maybe shoot. I think you would want to see that around maybe 3 to 4 shots a game from 3 if he's getting up to 10 shots and a higher usage. But I really do like this. I really do like this prospect off the bench for the Spurs. And I think eventually when Luke Kornet's contract's be gone, I think this is going to be a nice plug and play, maybe even playing, like I said, alongside Wemby if the NBA starts to trend towards that double big again. I think he definitely has some comfortability playing, like I said, out in the wing. And that's just freakish to have in the next level once you have multiple 7-footers that can just move around and just comfortable putting the ball on the floor. I think you're just creating a bigger version of what the Oklahoma City Thunder have been. And I think for that reason, here at 14, the Spurs are getting a really great pick, and I really do like Hans Steinbach here to him at 14. All right, and kicking out the picks outside of the lottery, you'll have the Golden State Warriors on the clock here, and ultimately, this is a pick where you're going to try to want to maximize the championship window of Stephen Curry before he ultimately decides to hang it up and ride off into the sunset. So I have them here selecting Kareem Lopez by way of and the New Zealand Breakers of the NBL. And this is a younger prospect. He's only 18 years old, so he could be classified, I guess, if you want to throw him in that freshman range. But he's been playing over in New Zealand now for the New Zealand Breakers for the past 2 years. He's definitely has some pro readiness to him, I think. He definitely has a really good frame coming in, maybe 6'8", 6'9", 210, 220 range. But he has some comfortability putting it on the floor. I think if you just quickly watch him, a quick over glance, it kind of does look like a little bit of the Jalen Johnson that we've seen this year. I think definitely doesn't have the playmaking ability that he possesses. I don't think he has the handle that he possesses either, but I think in a perfect world, that's kind of what he could become. I think he definitely has some ability to pass the ball. I think he definitely has some ability to dribble the ball. And I think here with the Warriors, where there's a lot of movement and there's a lot of off-ball screens, and I think you definitely need to have a higher IQ player, where I think here you're getting a guy that's been in a professional system for the past 2 years. I think there's not going to be much of a learning curve here for him. I think he's definitely going to be a good rebounder for them too, and just offer some more size for the Warriors at times. I think you're just giving you some more just versatility off the bench for Steve Kerr here. And I think he does ultimately struggle being the greatest shooter at the times. I don't think he's going to be the most ready shooter. I think he probably will lose minutes to Guy Santos at times, but if he can develop a three-point shot, this is going to be a scary pick. Whether that's going to be towards the transition after Steph Curry, I think he definitely can maximize his potential while Steph Curry is still Steph Curry essentially, but I think you're ultimately just taking a developmental pick here. I think he's still 18. There's a lot of room to grow. I think this is kind of similar to the Kuminga pick. I don't think he's as athletic, but I think he's willing to learn and kind of just be a systematic player, whereas Kuminga almost wanted to have a system built around him. I think just having that different mindset is going to be, you're going to be able to build a lot more with him, around him. I think he definitely has the tools physically to be, like I said, a good defender, a good rebounder, and ultimately he might be a good playmaker. I think he's just really missing the 3-point shot. And if any team could figure out a 3-point shot, I think that is going to be the Golden State Warriors. And if you can get him maybe around 35-36% come his rookie year, and just defensive switchability and the versatility that he's going to offer on the defensive end, I think this is going to be a home run pick here with Kareem Lopez to the Golden State Warriors here at 15. Okay, and then now here at 16, we'll have the Kings of the play-in, the Miami Heat, and I think this is just a rough position to be in. I think they're still transitioning, trying to find that next star for them. Whether or not this is going to be them for the Miami Heat, but I have them here selecting Pete, another freshman out of Arizona. And I think this is probably the first guy in this mock to have his just position overall fall off a cliff, kind of essentially. I think he was at 9 for the Bucks for me last time around, and now he's seen his name fall out of the lottery, but I don't think it's really a knock on him. He did miss 3 games in that stretch, but I just ultimately don't think he's ever going to be your lead playmaker, your lead scorer, your lead anything on your team. But I think what better franchise to have select you than the Miami Heat, who's really thrived off of team play, Miami Heat culture basketball essentially. And I think you get a guy here with a strong frame, a really good defensive player. I think a really good defensive versatility player. I think he can be bigger. I think you definitely need some more size, some more rebounding there in Miami. I think this is a guy that you can definitely pair with Bam Adebayo and have some type of playmaking ability on the other side of the end too. But the question is, how well can he shoot the 3-point shot? I mean, we definitely saw a stretch of Bam Adebayo not even attempting threes for the longest amount of time in his career, where he wasn't the greatest shooter. I don't know if this is the same case. I don't know if he really is the greatest shooter, or he's just kind of scared to shoot them, essentially, or it's just not really his role at Arizona. I think he definitely did have a small stretch there where he was shooting, I think, 6 of 12, exactly only being 12 shots, so he's shooting 50% in a small sample size. He did go 2 of 2 against Arizona State, if I do believe, but it being the small sample size and the ability not really to shoot that well or on a high volume at that level, it kind of does scare you to be able to shoot the next level. But I think the rebounding, the defensive versatility, I think definitely being able to pass out of a short roll, being a good screener, just having a high IQ to be able to hit the skip passes when needed, the duck in passes down to the other big that he's playing with. I think just the overall ability to just be a basketball player instead of a robot on the offensive end. I think that's just a perfect piece to build with this rebuilding culture of what's going to be Miami. I think you just need to overall take in whatever talent you can get. And I think Pete ultimately might not be your lead guy, your lead scorer, your franchise player, but this is definitely a prospect that's going to be around for a good amount of years. I think he's definitely going to be a fan favorite. He's going to have a lot of freakish dunks. He's just a bigger player than a lot of players, even at the NBA level. And I think this is just going to be a great pick here for the Miami Heat here at 16. Okay, next we'll have pick 17, and this will be owned by the Memphis Grizzlies now by way of the Orlando Magic. And I think this is part of the Desmond Bane trade, but that could be said at a different time. But I have them here selecting Henry Vassar, a junior out of UNC, and this is actually, I think this is his 4th year of college basketball. I think he had a redshirt year, if I'm not wrong. And I could be wrong actually, but I think ultimately here you're drafting just another NBA size frame, a bigger body player. I think with the injury struggles of Zach Edey essentially this year, I think you're missing out on a lot of center play. I think you do move on from Jaren Jackson at the trade deadline, I think you finally just realize that Jaren Jackson is just not going to be a center in the NBA. He's just more of a rim protecting power forward. He's not going to ever really help you on the rebounding aspect of the defensive side. And I think here you're just getting a bigger frame, a 7-foot frame. It's probably going to come in closer, maybe I think heavier, 230 plus probably. Good screener, pretty decent rebounder. I think he has some decent defensive instincts where he's going to put himself in position to block a few shots. I think he definitely has shown the ability to shoot the three-point shot this year too, and I think he's a willing three-point shooter. I think he has some decent volume for how many shots he's really taking. And out of that pick and pop, I think around the top of the key, he's just been a really respectable three-point shooter. You can see almost 41% there, and I think to pair that up with the pick and pop or the rare occasion just leaving him open, I think he's really become a really good passer this year too. And I think at times he could become a hub for whether it be the bench unit or the starting unit. Come at times, I think you have a lot of athletes in Jalen Wells and Cedric Howard, G.G. Jackson. You might be able to hit the cutter occasionally from him for the center is overcompensating essentially if he steps out, hits the three, and then next thing you know he's hitting the other big essentially on a cut. I think he's definitely done that many times this year. Where I know Caleb Wilson's unfortunately done for the year, but when he was healthy, there was countless times where he's hitting the big-to-big action down to him, and Caleb Wilson getting an easy dunk or a layup, mainly a dunk. He doesn't, let's be honest. But I think here you're getting a really good bench prospect, a really good backup center, and whether or not the Zach Edey experiment essentially works out, I think you definitely get some resurgence. I think this is a guy that has a very high floor too. And I think this is a really great safe pick for Memphis here at 17. Okay, next year we'll have 18 to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and this is by way of the Jared McCain trade at the trade deadline. Previous said, it's hard to draft for him. And again, this is the second time they're already on the clock, but I have them here selecting Amari Allen, a freshman out of Alabama. And this is really a fan favorite for me personally. I think he's a really great defender. I think he can be your point of attack defender. And a really great size too at 6'8", almost 205 pounds. I think what more could you really want for the Thunder drafting board? I think they've drafted a lot of people with the ability just to defend and have, when you come back down the offensive side, not be a cone or a robot on the offensive end. I think he's a really good three-point shooter. I think he can create his own three-point shot. I think he's a really good underrated playmaker too. You can see he's posting 3 assists here. I think he's going to be able to attack closeouts, maybe even come around pick and rolls, and just be a fun bench prospect here for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think he's also to pair that up with the defensive side and the switchability to guard maybe 2 through 4 at times, maybe even guard your 1 and be a point of attack defender, like I said. I think he's a really good rebounder for his size and his position. Like I said, he's already a really good three-point shooter too. I think when you're playing here in Alabama in Nate Oates' system where you're getting up and down a lot, there's a lot of three-point shots, and I think he's just really emerged as a bigger forward who's been able to create for himself and create for others, and also just shoot for the three-point shot really efficiently and really, really well. And I think the Thunder ultimately, I think you do need a little bit more size. I pair him up with the Axel Lindenberg, and you create a bigger forward tandem, and just also defensive nightmares, able to attack closeouts, and just be versatile on the offensive end, essentially. I think this is a great pick for the Oklahoma City Thunder here at 18. I think Amari Allen's really going to become a fan favorite, and who knows, maybe even becomes more of like a Jalen Williams. I think this guy is a limit for him, and I think this is probably going to be a guy that's might even creep into the lottery come the next couple weeks for me. Okay, here at 19, we'll have the Charlotte Hornets back on the clock here, and I already touched on pretty much they've really been a fun team. I think this pick is coming by way of the trade in the offseason where they traded for Mark Williams, or they dumped him off his last year of his contract, and I have them here selecting Bennett starts, senior out of Iowa. And I think this is another guy that's come back, and I think maybe even at this point seen a little bit of a dip in his draft stock compared to last year. I think he definitely would have went a lot higher in last year's class, where it just wasn't the greatest. But I really do like Bennett starts here as it's going to ultimately, I think, be your bench point guard here behind LaMelo. But I think he's going to offer a really great playmaking ability, really high IQ on the offensive end, just going to be able to create. Out of the pick and roll, I think he's going to set up a lot of other people and just be a quick problem and just be a defensive, not really a nightmare. I think just more or less a pest for bench point guards to guard. And I think you're just going to continue to have 48 minutes of high playmaking ability. And if you pair that up with the development what we've started to see from this young Charlotte nucleus, I think the sky's the limit really for this team, and maybe they might even be able to not contend, but get into the playoffs next year. And I think Bennett here has a really nice ability to create his own three-point shot at times. He's a really good shooter, almost shooting 40% from three, as you can see. I think he really compares almost to like a Peyton Pritchard. I don't think he has the quick twitch ability and be able to take people off the dribble like that. And he's definitely not going to have the half-court buzzer beater ability. I think that Peyton Pritchard is randomly developed throughout his career, but I think he's definitely going to be pretty similar to that. I don't think he's definitely going to be a problem on the defensive end. I think he's definitely going to get picked out, but coming in at 6'4" here, I think he might be able to be not a plus defender at reading night, but maybe just an even defender, and I think that's all you can really ask for if you're going to get a plus amount of offense out of him on the offensive side for however many minutes he might play, 16, 18 minutes a game. So I think it's a really great pick here at 19. I think Charlotte gets essentially your backup point guard for hopefully the next 4 years, if not more. And then wrapping up the end of the teens, we'll have the start of the 20s, and we'll have the Toronto Raptors on the clock here. And I think this is a team that started to cool off a little bit. They were definitely really hot to start out the year, but I have them here selecting Cameron Carr, sophomore out of Baylor. And he is a redshirt sophomore by way of Tennessee this year. I think he's definitely just emerged onto the scene and just been an absolute problem. I think Tennessee definitely wished they probably would have had him on their roster this year, but luckily for Cameron Carr, the emergence is just going to ultimately benefit him towards what's going to be hopefully a great NBA career. I think he's a really great three-point shooter. I think he might be the best cutter in the NBA, in the college basketball this year. He's just a really fun prospect here at what's going to be 20. He's really efficient. He's a lengthier frame, as you can see. He's a really good three-point shooter, as I already touched on. But then he comes down to the defensive end, and he's a better shot blocker than he is at creating steals, that's always interesting as a guard. I think his wingspan, I don't exactly know the numbers off the top of my head, but I'm very curious to see what it's going to be when he comes into the combine. It's definitely something crazy. He's just a really good defender where he blocks a lot of people's shot as they get ready to pull up, and he's coming up and swatting it behind as they coming up behind them and swatting it as they get into their release. And it's really interesting. He's got a lot of chase down blocks like that. And I think the defensive instincts that he possesses, as well as the length, he's just going to be a really problematic defender as soon as he starts to put on a little bit more weight at the next level. I think build-wise, he definitely is pretty comparable to Brandon Ingram. I don't know how well of a shot creator he's going to be able to the next level, but between coming off a bunch of curl screens and refusing the curl screen and cutting back door and all that stuff, I think he's just going to be a really good cutter and a really good three-point shooter and a great defender at this next level. And then what more could you really want for pick 20? I think that definitely fits the bill of what the Toronto Raptors have drafted the past however many years it feels like. And I think you just slot in another guy here at the shooting guard and wings position here at 20. And I think another prospect out of Baylor, unfortunately, did take Jacoby Walter. I think he might be stealing his minutes there, but this is a great pick here at 20. I think the Raptors get a home run, what might be another great steal for that franchise. Then now here with pick 21, we will have the Los Angeles Lakers, America's team, and I will continue to draft this team, or for this team, as if Luka Doncic can be a franchise player, as if he isn't already. And I will have them here selecting Braylon Mullins, another freshman out of UConn. And this is, again, another guy that's kind of seen his stock fall off from the previous video towards this one. It's not really kind of due to his lack of play or his lack of production. It's more or less just due to everybody else just being really good. I think this is a really good class, as I've touched on. And unfortunately, Braylon's just more or less a limited player. I mean, there's nothing really, unfortunately, there's nothing wrong with that. I think just unfortunately, he's seen other players just surpass him. And this time around, I think probably for him is the most beneficial part of this. And I think he's going to be part of a team next to Luka and Austin Reeves, and maybe get a year or two of LeBron. And what more could a spot-up shooter want? I think he's definitely a good rhythm shooter. He's going to come off a lot of screens. He has a really lightning-quick three-point release, too. And I think with the great playmaking ability of those three, I already said, and mainly Luka Doncic as you go forward the next couple of years, I think this is going to be his this is going to be his guy. He's going to hit him on a lot of three-point kickouts, I believe. And if he continues just to have the confidence and the shooting ability that he has, this guy from Indiana, I believe, that where he just had basketball probably even before he was born in his blood. And I think that if he just continues just to shoot the ball well, be scrappy on the defensive end, and just be a pest, and just continue to fight and put more weight on, continue to grow with the Los Angeles Lakers here, I think this will be a great steal. I think ultimately, too, JJ Redick's this is going to be his favorite player on his team, maybe. I think he's going to have he's going to have a lot of film studies with him. I think he's going to be a lot of one-on-one time. He's going to see a lot of himself within Braylon, and I think there's going to be just a great translation from coach to player. I think there's going to be a lot of results, hopefully, if he just continues to shoot the ball well, and that's ultimately why I have him here, selected at 21 for the Los Angeles Lakers. Alright, and then here at pick 22, we'll have the Denver Nuggets on the clock, and this is obviously Nikola Jokic's team. So I will be here selecting a player to pair with him. So I'll have the Denver Nuggets selecting Alex Caravan out of UConn. Funny enough, a senior out of UConn. Back-to-back UConn picks, didn't even realize it until just now. But Alex Caravan is a really, really, really great prospect in my eyes. And I know maybe not everybody also sees it that way. I think the three-point shooting and the defensive ability and just the IQ and the championship rep. I mean, what more could you want to pair with Nikola Jokic? I think this is a guy that's going to sit pretty on the three-point line, maybe hit 2 to 3 threes a game for his career that he's next to Jokic, and it's like, man, we can't leave this guy open. I think he's definitely going to shoot the ball really well, and I think similarly to kind of Michael Porter Jr., where he's just a problem when it gets hot. I think that's just going to be very similar here for Alex Caravan. But the trade-off is that he's not going to be taking a bunch of stupid, contested pull-up jump shots and just heat checks. I think he's just going to play a lot of smart, calculated basketball, a lot of cutting actions if he's going to take layups. I think he's going to come off a lot of curl screens, maybe potentially too. Be a rhythm shooter. I think he definitely has a great feel for the offensive end with his playmaking ability. Playing for the Dan Hurley offense for now, it's been 4 full years. That if you haven't watched UConn play, they don't have the ball stick to anybody besides maybe their post option when they're just trying to clear it out and get a 3-second touch to a big here and there. But I think just the fluidity of him and how well he moves around the court, he doesn't get tired. He plays really scrappy, underrated defense in my eyes. I mean, he's posting a steal and a block here. To combine with the NBA range, the step behind the NBA range, and he's still shooting 42% almost. I mean, this is going to be a perfect pairing here with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray's playmaking ability. I think this is a guy that's not going to need the ball in his hands a lot. Kind of similar to Cam Johnson. It's going to be just on a much cheaper contract. Already have the championship pedigree. Already knows what it's going to take to win and perform at a higher level. And this is just going to be a coach's fan favorite here. He's not going to ever have any probably problems with the locker room. It's never going to be a problematic. Probably be a great team role player. And that's exactly why I have the Denver Nuggets here selecting Alex Caravan at 22. And here are the Atlanta Hawks back on the clock, and this is by way of the Cleveland Cavaliers at 23. And I have them here selecting sophomore big, Morez Johnson out of Michigan. And this is a transfer by way of Illinois last year. Kind of a shocker to transfer to Michigan, but for his sake, it has really benefited him. And he's been one of the most efficient bigs in all of college basketball this year. The most dominant force is at only 6'9". I mean, you see the weight. I think he came in at 230 and is now listed at 250, maybe 255. And he's still a really fluid athlete. He really can move his feet pretty well. I mean, the more I've watched him, I've seen him situationally switch out into people. I'm like, what is he doing out in that matchup? And he's held his own for his own sake, for his size. And he's just a really fun athlete. He's a younger guy. Played for the FIBA National U19 team this summer. This past summer now, that won a gold medal. And so that just shows his age. He's also really young. He's developed. He's not really too much of a three-point shooter. I think the Hawks definitely tried to turn Onyeka Okongwu into more of a three-point threat. But with the free throw touch that he's displayed this year, he's shooting almost 80%. In the recent, I guess, more voluntary three-point shots that he's attempted, you can see the number. He's almost shooting 43% on the rare volume he's taken. I mean, most recently he's posted, I think he's hit his last three. Most recently posted 2 of 2 against Iowa. He's really young. He's really interesting. A really physical big. I think that the Hawks definitely need another big with more rebounding. Get rid of Clint Capella in the offseason, essentially letting him walk in. Whether this is a guy that might eventually replace Onyeka Okongwu down low, I think you just paid him too. But I think this is another physical bench prospect that you're going to get, and it might ultimately be a steal here at 22 for the Atlanta Hawks. And then next year at pick 24, we'll have the Detroit Pistons on the clock, and I think this is a trade that's coming by way of the trade deadline. And there's a lot of moving pieces. I think ultimately the Pistons get rid of Jaden Ivey to receive this pick. And I have them here selecting Thomas Houck out of Florida, junior forward. And I really do like Thomas Houck. I think he has probably one of the best motors I've seen in college basketball this year. I think he's a really versatile defender. Once again, I think you've continued to see this trend that I do like and display an interest in being able to play defense. I think it's very important come contract time and let alone playoff time, and you're just not going to be on the court if you cannot play defense in today's age with the offensive ability of a lot of these players. And I think here at Thomas Houck, he displayed a lot of just versatility in his game, come even last year towards the championship run that UF decided to go on, and he's carried that over to this year, being a really good offensive rebounder, a really good defensive rebounder at times. I mean, he's playing with two other really good bigs, and Ruben Chenyulu and Alex Condon, who do steal a lot of statistic rebounds from him, but he still manages to average 6 of them. He's not really the greatest shooter. I'll touch on that in a second, but he gets a lot of cuts. He's good at attacking closeouts. He's a really good athlete. He gets a lot of dunks, a lot of breakout dunks. He's just, I think, a really good piece here for the Detroit Pistons. I think this prospect here will give you just a little bit more bench depth and a little bit more size off the bench, and just ultimately I think it will be a Detroit basketball player. But back to the three-point shooting, I think a lot of people have labeled him more or less as a 3-point 3-and-D guy. I personally don't believe in the three-point shooting ability yet. I think there still is a lot of room to improve. As you can see, he's only posting about 34%. I think there's a lot of shots where just questionably doesn't look the prettiest at times when it's coming out of his hands, and it's when you see it ultimately hit the rim or the back rim or backboard at times. But if he can become a more or less a respectable three-point shooter at this next level, as well as pair with his high motor and his defensive ability, I think this is a great prospect here for the Detroit Pistons at 24. Okay, and the next year we'll have the Philadelphia 76ers on the clock, and at pick 25, and this is by way of the other side of the Jared McCain trade, and this is a pick that's ultimately coming from my Houston Rockets again, and I have them here selecting Christian Anderson Jr., sophomore guard out of Texas Tech. And I know this kind of is like, oh, we just got rid of Jared McCain to ultimately then draft another smaller guard, but I think even if dating back to the beginning of the preseason, where if you look at the depth chart, where Nick Nurse always didn't believe really Jared McCain was a point guard, he had, I think, Tyrese Maxey was listed as your number one, VJ Edgecombe was your two, and I think it was Trendon Watford as your third string point guard before Jared McCain. If correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. So he never really viewed him as a point guard. I think he wants more of a bench, just twitchy guard that just can create for others. So here you go, Nick Nurse. Here's your player in Christian Anderson. I think there's a lot of similarities here to Tyrese Maxey and the quick ability. I think he's a really quick, undersized guard. You see the playmaking ability there, where he's almost posting 8 assists, and I think that's top 3, if I'm not wrong, in the nation right now, if I'm not wrong. Well, he's also posting numbers of 42% from the three-point line. And this is a guy that's playing about 38 minutes a game right now. He just does not come off the floor. Unfortunately, Texas Tech did suffer an injury to their other big threat, or the best player, I think, in JT Toppin. So Christian Anderson has been carrying a little bit more of a load recently. I think his turnover numbers have definitely reflected that, where he's had the ball in his hands pretty much the entire game. But as you can see, his efficiency, he's still really efficient as a scorer. I think 19 points and the 8 assists. I think if you get this talent here as a bench point guard, similar to the Bennett Starks pick for Charlotte, I think this is a great steal for the Philadelphia 76ers in a position that ultimately their coach, I think, wanted more over than just a spot-up catch-and-shoot guy in Jared McCain. Okay, then here at 26, we'll have the New York Knicks on the clock for the first time in this, and I will have them selecting forward Zubri Ejiofor out of St. John's, a senior, and man, he's just one of my favorite prospects in this class. I really do like Zubri Ejiofor a lot. I really do respect his defensive just force that he brings. I think you can see that he's blocking 2 shots a game. He's also posting a steal a game, but I don't think that fully tells the whole story of how much of an impact he has on the defensive end. I think this is a guy that he's just everywhere. He can switch on to anybody, and I legitimately mean anybody. I think he definitely can switch on to smaller guards for certain times in possessions. He's strong enough to guard. Probably is going to be a lot of NBA bigs at the next level. Obviously, a lot of college bigs. And he's looked really well doing it. He's a really great rebounder. And over the past few years, he started to develop more of a three-point shot. I know the numbers don't look the greatest, but he's a respectable three-point shooter. He doesn't shoot it a whole lot. He's only shooting about 1 a game. But to tie into that, he's also a really good playmaker. He's posting almost 4 assists a game. He's had multiple games with huge assist numbers. Were breaking out for a great playmaker for this St. John's offense. And I think if you pair that with the defensive ability that he's been able to post for these past couple of years, he's really slimmed down and been able to move his feet and just been a defensive force, as I've said. I think this is a guy that you can ultimately let Mitchell Robinson go. I think he definitely isn't going to have the same rebounding ability, but I think the defensive ability that he's going to bring to the table to be able to play also with Karl Anthony Towns is something you just can't pass up here at 26, and that's exactly why I have the New York Knicks making this selection here. Okay, and as we start to approach the closing stretches of this, we'll have the Boston Celtics on the clock here at 27, and I have them here selecting Nicholas Avdalis out of Virginia Tech, another freshman by way of Greece. And he's probably one of the most interesting prospects just overall in this class. And I mean, I think a lot of people are going to have a tough time analyzing what he's going to be at the next level. I think it's kind of have a cheat code, a little cheat sheet, a little preview. If you take a look at BYU guard last year, Edgar Ullman out of was selected by the Brooklyn Nets, and they've taken him, and he was more of an on-ball creator at that level. Now he's a lot more of an off-ball guy. He's developed really into a great three-point shooter off the catch and shoot, and I think he's really looked well in that position doing it. And I think the Boston Celtics, Brad Stevens definitely realized that as a whole. The past few years, they've taken a lot of high usage, high volume college players and dialed back their usage a lot and put them into a lot more confined, like just role players. And I think they've thrived a lot in the situations they've been in, especially like players like Baylor Shireman this year. And we saw great minutes out of Josh Minot, and Neemias Queta's had emergence. Jordan Walsh has also had some great minutes. Hugo Gonzalez has had really great minutes at times. And I think you add into that, and Nicolas Abdalas has been a lot more of an on-ball creator at this level of point forward. That he definitely still has those tools, but I think if you dial it back and you get him more into a catch-and-shoot guy and maybe attacking closeouts and maybe initiating the offense here and there, and I think maybe this is a guy maybe that eventually is going to replace your Joey Hauser minutes, your Baylor Shireman minutes, and just be a really like Swiss Army knife here at 6'9". It's going to be an amazing prospect to pair with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum here. And I think this is going to be another great guy. I think 27 might be a little bit too low once teams start realizing that, or I guess the public starts realizing that teams are probably going to dial back and have him be in that type of role. But this time around at 27, I think the Celtics definitely get a very interesting, great young talent here at 27 in Nicolas Abdalas. All right, the next year we'll have pick 28, and this is going to be owned by the Cleveland Cavaliers by way of the San Antonio Spurs. And I have them here selecting center Chris Sinak out of Houston, another freshman. And this is probably the guy that's seen his stock just continuously fall off, kind of almost a cliff this year. I think he has a lot of unique abilities on the offensive end, but I don't think it's really going to be the most efficient at the next level. And I think for that reason, he's just going to be dialed back into more of a catch-and-shoot, rebounding, problematic bench prospect. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think the Cavaliers, that's exactly what they need. I think you still struggle with those bench center minutes, and you're playing Thomas Bryant. You've seen Tristan Thompson minutes in previous years. You've seen Larry Nance. I mean, I think we just go get an athletic freak, a former 5-star, and a guy that's posted many double-doubles here at Houston, but I think he's just kind of struggled a little bit and been overshadowed by a lot of the other talent on that roster currently in that championship team. I think this is a guy that definitely can shoot the ball. I think his numbers definitely started to dip recently, where he's taken a huge dip in his three-point makeability. But I think if you get him into a team where you're going to have ideally James Harden and Donovan Mitchell, he's going to be able to hopefully stretch the floor and on the defensive side be a really great rebounder and hopefully a plus defender. I don't know how well he's going to be able to block a lot of shots, but he does have the ability to move his feet and switch out into the wing and ultimately be just a great athlete. But I think here you're going to hopefully utilize more of his three-point shooting ability, his ability to stretch the floor. I don't know how many minutes you ultimately will be able to afford to have him kind of go through a developmental growth phase while also ultimately kind of trying to develop for a championship. But I think as the year goes on, I think he definitely will be able to just grab rebounds and make layups and make dunks and hopefully hit the occasional catch and shoot three, corner shot. So I think that's really all you can ask for your bench center. I think that's a lot more than what you're getting out of any of the centers that you've had the past couple of years there in Cleveland. And I think why not take a former 5-star guard or big that has the athletic tangibles to be at least compatible for the NBA game. Okay, and as we continue to wrap this thing up, we'll have the Minnesota Timberwolves on the clock here. And this is by way of the Detroit Pistons coming at the trade deadline trade that I talked about a little bit earlier. And I have them here selecting Elijah Arenas, a freshman out of USC, and you can watch 5 seconds of him, and he might be your fan favorite. I mean, some of the shots that he shoots, man, is just like, wow. It's like, what is he doing? But it's interesting. I mean, it's a guy that unfortunately did get in a car accident, he missed some time. I think he was put in a temporary coma, crazy stuff, and then he comes back, and then I think he had something MCL injury, strain pull. I don't know if it was a full tear, but did ultimately miss the beginning of his freshman year. And then surprisingly, he did come back and he's played 12 games to this point. And The numbers haven't been great, and I think that's just a little bit due to his selfishness. I'm not going to lie. I think it's just the easiest way to say it. I think he definitely does miss a lot of open teammates and takes a lot of difficult, tough shots, but he can make them, unfortunately. And that's kind of just a matter of the fact. I think once he gets some more NBA coaching, I think the fact that he didn't play all year, he's coming back in now, it's rushing back essentially what it feels like from a pretty serious injury, but he hasn't been too bad. I think he's not the greatest defender either, but he's really lengthy. I think 6'6" might be underselling him. I think he might be closer to 6'8", believe that or not. But he definitely he's an unbelievable handle for the ball. I think an unbelievable ability to see things before they happen. But can we start to translate to team basketball, not Elijah Arenas basketball? And I think pairing him here with Anthony Edwards, I think that'd instantly be your 1-2 combo. I think Julius Randle would then be pumped down to the 3. I don't think it would be an instant, like, as soon as he drafted, but come maybe 2 or 3 years, this is going to be a guy that I think could be top 5 in this class. Unfortunately, he did have the injuries, but his scoring ability and ability just to be unstoppable at times, I think, is just going to really set him aside from the other people. And maybe they're just over-exaggerating. The efficiencies haven't been the greatest at this point, but like I said, he did deal with those couple of injuries, and I think he's still really shown the talent that he possesses in the short time frame of college basketball games. Okay, and then wrapping this up, we'll have pick 30. This is now going to be owned by the Dallas Mavericks. I think this is coming from the Washington Wizards. By the way, the Anthony Davis traded the trade down the line, but I have them here selecting Dalen Swain, junior forward out of Texas, and man, he's been really, really fun to watch this year. Unfortunately, actually, however you want to look at that, Texas has been a really isolation-dominant team. I think every single player on their team is just very isolation, heavy. Whether that be your center play and or your guard play in Jordan Pope and Tremont Mark, and then you have Dalen Swain, who's just ultimately, I think, been the best isolation scorer in all of college basketball. I think at one point last week, statistically, he was averaging 1.62 points per isolation possession, which is ridiculous. I think he's definitely started to take a huge leap in his three-point shot. He's shooting almost 3 of them a game. The playmaking abilities really started to emerge this year. He's really big in frame. I think he's a pretty decent rebounder. And when you pair that all up with the ability to just go and get a bucket from 3 different levels, I think a lot of it's just getting to the basket, getting downhill, just using his size. I think that just there's not much you can do with that. And I think then you flip that around and you go onto the defensive side, and he can be a point of attack defender. I think he really has great defensive instincts. Once again, we'll pair it up with the size and frame that he has, and just the ability, the length to play in passing lanes, be a disruptive defender, be annoying on ball, be physical. I think this would be a great prospect here to pair with Cooper Flagg and Kingston Flemings in this draft, and I think ultimately, Dalen Swain might be a great replacement for Najee Marshall. I think he might be a better Najee Marshall. I think if the three-point shot consistently can continue to stay on the upward trend, and he can possess to be a good three-point shooter off the catch, I think this guy could also be the limit for Dalen Swain here. I think 30 might be a little bit too low for a guy like this, where he's just been ultimately unstoppable in the offensive end, just been still a problematic guy on the defensive end, and he's still playing in the high SEC level. And I think Dallas, you're getting a steal here at 30 and closing out my first round of the second round mock draft, and I think this is a beautiful pick for Dallas here. And here, as we get ready to wrap this video on up, here I have a little bit of an outline, just kind of basic, just overcast of each team and every single pick they made here. Sacramento selecting Cameron Buser from Dallas, just wrapping it up with Dalen Swain. And as we segue that on in, thanks again for watching, and if you want to continue to see any more content that's going to be coming from me, I try to get this NBA mock draft cycle out every 2 weeks. I want to try to start getting into more individual draft analysis as this college basketball season wraps up and individual players have their full statistics laid out. that type of stuff will start to come out. And once again, thanks again for watching.